everyone. Welcome to the November 2020 webinar. I'm honored that you guys are here with us. We have Pastor Nathan Thompson with us, and he's going to do just a fantastic job. I can't wait for him to get a chance to share and to show you all that he knows. He's just a fount of wisdom. But before we turn it over to him, I want to say welcome. Thank you for attending. You guys are nearing the finish line of this semester. Before you know it, it will be done. So I encourage you, if you're a little behind, to continue to get caught up. If you have any questions, be sure to let us know. Be sure to say hello in the chat box. If you happen to be watching in a group, be sure to let Stephanie know. You can send an email to stephanie@destinyleaders.com who all's watching in your group. That way you get credit and don't have to write that dreaded paper. So today our guest is Pastor Nathan Thompson. He is from Christ Church in West Monroe. He is going to give us some lessons he's learned because he has a lot of experience from Chick-Fil-A and in leadership there. And we all know all of our lives have been blessed by the blessed chicken at Chick-fil-A, the Jesus chicken. And so but Chick-fil-A is also known besides their incredibly delicious food, they're also known for their leadership culture and the way that they treat people. And now Nathan is the small groups pastor at Christ Church in West Monroe, Louisiana. And he's been able to use what he learned from the business world, from his experience at Chick-fil-A, to really empower and impact his ministry there. So besides this whole Chick-fil-A thing, Nathan is just an incredibly smart and capable leader, has done amazing things with the small group. Like whenever you look at Christ Church in West Monroe, there are several things that you look at and go, wow, that they just do that really, really well. And one of those things is small groups. The way they do groups has always impressed me. It's a large church, but because of the work of Nathan and his predecessor, Pastor Jeffrey Kent, they've done a great job of making a very big church feel small through groups. So Nathan has a lot of wisdom. If you want to know all about groups, he's your guy. They do it very well at a very high level. If you want to know how to lead and lead strong, he's got this experience from Chick-fil-A with this strong leadership culture. So we're going to bring these worlds together, church and chicken. So it's going to be a good time. We do have several students, Pastor Nathan, from the Philippines that are logging on. So if you don't know, Chick-fil-A is a delicious, efficient, friendly, fried chicken paradise, beloved by people all over, particularly Christians. And there's the logo. And then, as Kanye says, they are closed on Sunday. But Pastor Nathan, why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself a little bit further? I've given you the best introduction that I know that I can. But why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, and let us know a little more about your past, your experience, and what you currently do at Christ Church.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Landon, and thank you, Destiny and DLI. I'm super excited and super honored to be able to be here and share with you guys just a little piece of my experience through Chick-fil-A and all the years I served there. And so my name is Nathan, and I worked for Chick-fil-A for about 20 years of experience with them. During that time, I was a youth pastor for some of that, about 3 or 4 years. That was a long time ago. It's funny, I vowed to never get back into church ministry 15 years ago, and be careful what you vow, because God will pull you right back in and make it your passion. And so that's what happened. But and I had a career in music that I pursued, Christian contemporary music. Really spent a lifetime in church ministry, and throughout that time, 20 years in Chick-fil-A. And so, man, it really shaped me. Like, God used Chick-fil-A in my life to just shape me and form me in some huge ways. And I have to share this, since this is COVID season, you got to pick up one of these Chick-fil-A masks. Okay. I mean, come on. For those of you not familiar, that's the little cow print mask. And so I had to bring the Chick-fil-A merch, man. I had it for lunch today. No, that's not a cookie. Yes, it might be a cookie package. Not the best healthy option, but we're all dealing with that COVID-20. And someone put moo in the chat thread, so now I'm worried. No, but look, I'm super honored to be here with you guys and just talk about some things I learned through leadership there. And in the comments, if you're on here and you ever worked for Chick-fil-A or currently work for Chick-fil-A, then maybe indicate so. And as I kind of move through here, maybe Landon can go, oh, we got such and such, they work for Chick-fil-A currently. If you've ever worked for Chick-fil-A, you know that the culture there is second to none. Not only do they have great tasting products and chicken, and they are serious about efficiency. And somebody said, we just came out of election season. They're like, if Chick-fil-A were to have run the election, we already have a president by now. Like, it would be way over, wouldn't have taken all these extra days, all this stuff. Yeah, Chick-fil-A's got it going on, needless to say. So in my time with Chick-fil-A, I got to open up, one of the experiences I really love was opening up about 20 new Chick-fil-A restaurants across the country, all the way up to New York and in those states up there, and a lot in Georgia, and some in Tennessee, and some in Texas and Louisiana, Arkansas. And that was a really great experience to be able to open those up. The Chick-fil-A here in West Monroe, Louisiana, actually was ranked #1 and #2 in drive-through experience for several years in a row. I think they still hold that title. And they have a really strong team there, so it's amazing. We took a trip to Joplin, Missouri one year to check out a Chick-fil-A whose drive-through was #1, and when we were currently #2. And literally a week after we got back, our leadership team, man, we put us in the #1 spot, just intentionality. And so loved it. So if you know anything about Chick-fil-A, they have a set of core values, right? It's customers first, personal excellence, continuous improvement, working together, and stewardship. And so throughout my time there, really honing in on those aspects of the core values of that organization shaped so many things in me. I will tell you that my lifelong mentor, David Benson, if you ever come to West Monroe, you come to one of the Chick-fil-A's. We have 3 here, one at the mall, one at there's a drive-through and a freestanding Chick-fil-A. And you will meet the best operator in the chain. He's actually one of the top 5 in reality, and he's my favorite. But David Benson, lifelong mentor, his theme in business and in life was always thinking next. He was always thinking. He's not satisfied with just, hey, what we did, yes, let's celebrate our accomplishment, but let's think next. And so he had this theme. He called it gentle pressure, relentlessly applied. And then we even had days that we'd meet with David once a month, and we call them, his name is David, so they'd be called D-Days. In the early days, that made me very nervous, Landon, for that to be called D-Day. But he even made us do things like write out our own job description. We working the job and in leadership, and I was over marketing and the GM for a particular store, and then marketing for the organization here locally. And he said, hey, write out your job description. So clarify what it is that you do and really understand what it is that you do. And so that really, really shaped me. And in terms of coming into ministry, so 1.5 years ago, I joined the ministry team here at Christ Church. And there's so many lessons that absolutely transfer over. And one of those is just building clarity around what you do, pursuing excellence. And one of our core values here at Christ Church is pursuing excellence. And so that matches up with where I came from. But just creating clarity around what your purpose is and what your role is. And so if you're a student and you're looking forward to getting involved, and maybe you already are involved in ministry, I think just like in business and in ministry, it's so important to be clear about what the mission is and to have absolute clarity about what it is that you do. So we focused on, in the Chick-fil-A world, pursuing excellence, as I said, caring for our people, taking care of people. Our team was of high priority, growing the leadership team, helping people grow and develop. I mean, DLI is doing that, and Destiny is doing that. Destiny churches around the country, around the globe, they're all about developing people. And so that's such an important thing. But I wanted to talk to you today. There's so much I could share with you. And please, Landon, you can feel free to share my contact information, email, whatever, after the webinar is over. I'll be willing and able and honored to talk to anybody that has additional questions. But I wanted to talk to you about culture, because Chick-fil-A culture, if you know anything about it, culture is something that Chick-fil-A rigorously protects, rigorously is passionate about. You know, we had this core principle that basically said, your mission is to embody the values. If you say it's important to you, don't just speak it, walk it out, right? And there's a lot of scriptural truth to that, but embody the values. And so our culture was something that we really protected at all costs. And so we have to protect it. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you guys. In the church world, culture is also important. I'm a small groups pastor now. In the culture and the health of our small groups, culture is incredibly important. And so how do we protect it? And how do we protect this thing called the church that we're called to work in, this community of faith? And how do we promote unity within the body of Christ? And small groups, man, I'll tell you what, there's been so many avenues through which my experience at Chick-fil-A has benefited me. And I just want to talk to you about culture today. That's what I want to talk to you about. So I'm going to do that kind of in the reverse. Instead of giving you the 5 principles of great culture, I'm going to give you a talk that we shared actually at our Chick-fil-A leadership sessions that I kind of cultivated this talk with a number of other leaders there. And we gave it to our leadership teams. And I think it really helped them. And so I felt like this webinar with DLI, I felt like, man, if I could share something of value, it would be to talk about how to protect your culture. And so I'm going to share with you this presentation, if you will. It's something I believe firmly in, called the 5 enemies of unity. And so you're not looking at just my face the entire time. I'm actually going to share my screen. I got some slides and some things, and to just talk through with you. So Landon, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this screen sharing deal. And here we go. I think we're good. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about the 5 enemies of unity. Okay, you guys ready? All right, so I want to talk to you about barnacles. Anybody know what barnacles is? You can raise your, hit your little emoji there that claps the hand or puts the thumbs up. But a barnacle is a marine crustacean with an external shell, which attaches itself permanently to a variety of surfaces. I see many people raising their hands. I know what a barnacle is. And I have this little video clip of these little guys. If you get a shot of this is, I don't know if you can see it, if the video lags at all, but these little guys, these living marine crustacean organisms are just, they're moving about. They're really kind of creepy looking. Like this picture right here is something out of a science fiction show. It kind of looks a little bit crazy. If you Google, or excuse me, if you YouTube barnacle, you'll even find a video of a guy who had a barnacle attach itself to his hand. This thing, they attach to most of the time underneath the hull of a ship, a seagoing vessel, and they're constantly breeding. But this dude attached itself to this guy's hand. It was awful. Okay, it was, just go watch it. You'll see. And they have this whole episode about surgically removing this thing. And there's a picture of these barnacles, just hundreds, thousands of these things attaching to the bottoms of these ships. Here's some interesting statistics about barnacles, and I'm getting to our first enemy of unity in just a moment. Barnacles can slow down a nuclear-powered ship by as much as 40%. Like, slow down that massive of a ship by 40%. They attach to everything. They're expanding and breeding constantly. They're disgusting little things. They weighed down the hull of the vessel. And the U.S. military, this is interesting, my research, the U.S. military spends $5 million a year just trying to get rid of barnacles, just dealing with barnacles. And in fact, you may want to turn the volume down on your computer. I'm going to show you a video of some guy trying to, full hazmat, face mask, face shield. He's spraying barnacles off the underside of one of these vessels. And so just check this out. This is some nasty business. Turn down your computers for just a moment. There you go. I think one might have flown under his face shield. That would be really scary and incredibly gross. So why are we talking about barnacles? Obviously, these things are a problem, right? I think they represent well our first enemy of unity. And that's in an organization, in a church, in a small group, gossip and negativity. That's the first enemy of unity, right? So here's some facts about negativity, whether it be in your organization, in your small group, in your church. A negative comment acts just like a barnacle in your organization. It may be one little comment or one little word or one negative thing about a leader or one little remark about the pastor, and it feels kind of innocent, but it attaches itself, right?
So, yeah.
And then suddenly someone else maybe has something to say or something to add to it. And so a negative comment or gossip acts just like a barnacle. When someone shares a negative, the hearer gets tainted and becomes more cynical themselves. You ever felt like that? You're in a room and this kind of thing may be going on, and you just feel a little tainted, a little negative yourself. If I hear 10 people gossip, I become burdened, less motivated, and worse at what I'm trying to accomplish. And gossip is degrading and will destroy an organization. It will destroy a church. It will destroy a small group. There's a book I'm reading right now called The Emotionally Healthy Church. And one of my goals is to incorporate into actually our small group leader training this idea of how to be emotionally healthy with our leaders and helping them understand the negative effects of negativity, and gossip in particular is incredibly important. So let's define, what is gossip? Like, what does that mean? Let's do gossip defined. I love this definition of gossip. To help you rethink it. Gossip is when a negative is discussed with anyone that can't solve the problem.
Wow.
Think about that. When a negative is discussed with anyone that can't solve the problem. If I have a problem, if I didn't like something I heard, maybe the small group leader say, or our pastor say, or maybe another leader say, I disagreed. Like, what am I going to go around and tell 5, 10, 15 people I didn't really like that? What good is that doing? Maybe I'll go to the pastor and say, hey, you know what? I didn't quite understand, or I didn't quite see the point you were making there. And so a gossip is when a negative is discussed with anyone that can't solve the problem. Everything in your church, everything in your small group, everything in your organization moves at the speed of trust. And when gossip is present, trust dies. And you can feel it in the room. It's just something that happens. So what do? Negatives go up. Positives go all around. I love this quote by Chick-Fil-A founder, Truett Cathy. He said, how do you know if someone needs encouragement? If they're breathing. And so everyone inhale, everyone exhale. You and I both, we need to be encouraged. And we need to encourage others. And so negatives go up, or the source. They don't go around. Positives go around. Hand the negative up so a solution can be found, right? And then most importantly, if you're a leader, if you seek to be a leader in church or even in business or whatever context you find yourselves in, leaders must model a different spirit. And so the way I like to look at that is, without being harsh, we got to confront the gossip. Like if someone says something about someone, say even in my small group, right? Or another leader, maybe I deal with a lot of small group leaders, about 100, 120 small group leaders over the last couple of semesters. And if one of them is making a comment to the other one, or about another one, or off comment, or making a complaint or something, I always say, hey, let's withhold judgment, because I want to believe the best. And with your permission, can I bring this up to he or she and see if we can help with that problem? Like, instead of you and I just jumping to this conclusion, maybe we can go talk to them. We're going to lovingly confront. We're going to get some answers. We're going to go with solutions. We're going to model a different spirit. And so why say no to gossip? Gossip is toxic and damaging to people and the company, or your small group, or your church. And an erasing negative chatter creates a safe place in which people can thrive. And let's not forget, because we're believers, what does the Bible say about this kind of thing? Proverbs 16:28, a dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends. It's right there in Proverbs. Proverbs 20:19, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with one who gossips. Oh, and Ephesians 4:29, and I'm bringing it heavy, Landon, I'm sorry. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. I love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. Incredibly, incredibly important. And in fact, as a person in ministry, one thing you have to guard against and be careful with is this tendency for people to get into holy gossip. You know what I'm talking about? We're talking about prayer request time. Oh, yeah. we should go pray for that person because da 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 da. Oh, we should really be praying for them because they blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? You got to be real careful because people can. Part of our leadership training for small group leaders is to avoid holy gossip. Keep prayer needs within the group, within needs that are personal to you, and not one that may compromise you as a leader or lead to this idea of division and negativity and gossip. So that's enemy number one of unity, because we want unity, right? In our churches, in our small groups, in our organizations, DLI, etc. You want unity.
Nathan, I want to jump in.
Yeah, man, jump in, brother.
Man, thank you, first of all, just for this first one, because I think as Christian leaders right now, perhaps our biggest challenge really is keeping unity. Now, we live in a divided world, so a divided world needs a united church. And there's so many things that will divide us. This Sunday after I preached, I received an opinion on that we're not mandating masks strictly enough. I received an opinion on that we're doing too much for social distancing. I received an opinion about how we were too silent on the political issues that were around us. So here's the thing: is like your pastor is hearing all kinds of negativity and gossip, things that are threatening to destroy the unity of the church. So our leaders, if you're a leader on this call right now, there has never been a time more important than right now. In Ephesians, Paul says this. He says that we are to contend for the unity of the faith. Like, not just like unity isn't something that happens. Unity is something that has to be contended for or fought for. Unity is something that is the obligation. There's not many things that I'll fight over. I'm a pretty lackadaisical, easygoing guy. I don't really, plus I can't fight. Like I'm tall and skinny. Fighting's not fighting's not really my thing. But one thing that I will fight for, because Paul told me to, he said, fight for unity, contend for unity. And so as leaders, I believe our number one job right now, I believe this with all of my heart. I hope everyone's listening and taking this down. Our number one job right now, particularly in this United States Western context that we're in, for many of us, not, we do have some students from other parts of the world that maybe aren't dealing directly with the mess that we're dealing with right now. But our number one job is to contend for the unity of the faith in this season. I would rather, if you're a leader in our church, I would rather you be fighting for unity. Like, that's what I care more about right now than how good you're doing with youth or kids, or like the other things are all peripheral. In this cultural moment, in this season that we're in, we need people to step up and say, yeah, that's not going to happen here, man. Like, we're not going to argue about that. We're not going to get into the conspiracy theories. We're not going to divide among party lines. Like, that doesn't happen here. Like, it can happen outside. Like, that's fine. We can't do anything about what happens in the world. But in this house, in this place, it's not going to enter. It's not going to happen. And that's what our pastors need us to do right now, more than anything, is to contend for the faith. So thank you so much for the unity of the faith. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I can't wait to hear the rest of it, but I wanted to jump in right there because about unity, that is the thing that's most important for all of us right now, is to keep the unity in our churches, because there are a million things trying to take that apart from us. So number one was don't gossip. What's the other four, Nathan?
Cool. So, all right. So let's get into the next one. The next one is, and we'll change up the little thing here. Poor communication. Poor communication in our organizations, in our groups, certainly as church leaders. We have to fight against poor communication, and that means communicate well. And so avoiding mushroom communication, right? And what is mushroom communication? Is where you feel kept in the dark, uninformed, and being fed a bunch of bull. There may be a better churchy way to say that, but I don't have it this time. And so we got to inform our people, right? Here's some statistics on poor communication. This is a real challenge, not only in organizations, but in churches and groups, especially. So here's some statistics on poor communication. 1 in 4 people quit, or you could say leave an organization or a church or a group, or know someone who did due to lack of transparency or communication. Only 10% of employees, and again, this was in the context of the Chick-Fil-A training, are aware of their company's progress in real time. And 4 out of 5 people want to hear more frequently from their bosses about how the company is doing. And 90% of employees would rather hear bad news than no news. Now, how does that translate into the church world? Obviously, if people aren't informed, or if they're not aware of what the church is doing, or what the purpose is, or what the activity is, like, man, we're talking about challenges in communication. When COVID hit, Landon, I don't know about you guys, but when COVID was happening and churches were going into lockdown, we had a lot of communication going on. I'm kind of an over communicator. You're probably getting this sense as we go through here, and I got slides and bullets for everything. Sorry if it's overkill, but we really did. We crafted a lot of messages and just emails and social media posts and other things to just try to keep people informed. We don't want people to be in the dark. We want them to be very clear, and we want them to be full of hope about where the church is going. And small group leaders have a particular challenge here too. If you lead a small group, or you lead people in any sense, communication is terribly important. So here's some solutions. Real-time progress updates. In a church setting, that may be attendance, or what our current roster of needs might be. Maybe it's the number of groups if you're in small group ministry, or the number of people impacted. Like, people want to know, like, what is my church doing? Or the number of, we just had Beyond Borders Sunday talking about all the missions groups that we give to and missionaries that we support throughout the world. And so just some updates on what we're doing as a church is incredibly important to give our people. Regular communication, right? A lot of our small groups use GroupMe, Facebook, certainly email, but the email thing, I got to tell you, you got to contend, because sometimes you got people that have 5,000 unchecked emails, and your emails are swimming in there somewhere. And so you got to find another way to communicate besides just that. But regular communication. From a church leadership standpoint, monthly one-on-one meetings. How am I doing with projects or goals, or the teams that I lead? What are some things we're working on? What's, as Jim Collins called it, what's your BHAG, your big, audacious, hairy goal that you have for what God has given you to do here at the church? And so your monthly one-on-one meetings have a chance to bring that into focus. On the job communication, creating a culture of communication. And so communication is incredibly important. Landon, you got any thoughts on the communication side of it? That's number 2. About to move into number 3.
Oh, we're good. Let's keep rolling.
Okay. So communication, obviously very important. And my encouragement to you, because this is challenging every semester and every year, is find multiple avenues to communicate. And it's better to over communicate than under communicate. People do not like to be uninformed or left in the dark, but you do need to keep those communications concise and clear, and keep it simple. And so, all right, third enemy of unity, unresolved conflict. Oh, let's get into that. So I had a little video clip. I don't know how we're doing on time here. It's 7 o'clock. I might have to roll through without showing this. Can I show a little snippet of a video clip? Let's see if it works. You guys might recognize this little episode here.
Okay, Rachel, why don't you start talking first?
All right. I feel that this is totally unjustified. She gave me the green light. I did nothing. Do you think I can't see you in the TV set?
right, Monica, if there is something that you would like to share.
You know, you had no right to go out with him. That is the most ridiculous
You sold
thing.
me out.
I did not say you did. You absolutely sold me. Talk. Did you just flick me? Okay, well, you wouldn't let me finish, and I was just... Ow, that hurt. Quit flicking. Ow, you flicking. You flicked me first. Ow, get it. Ow. Oh, all right, okay.
Let's not do this. Let's
All right, so that so conflict, unresolved conflict. Conflict happens for a number of variety of reasons. That was Friends, by the way, Friends episode from way back. So you old people on this thing might know, because I guess that's kind of our era. The young people are like, what show was that? Was that in the old world? It was definitely pre-COVID. But unresolved conflict, it often results in loss of productivity, stifling of creativity, the creation of barriers to cooperation and collaboration. And so here's the thing on unresolved conflict. Don't fear it. Embrace it. It's part of your job as a leader. It's part of your job to help resolve conflict in a healthy way. So if you look at where conflict comes from, we saw a funny video clip, but opposing positions, competitive tensions, power struggles, ego, pride, jealousy, performance discrepancies, miscommunication, just someone having a bad day. There's a lot of areas where conflict will arise, right? But none of that exists in the church, right? Like, we're free of conflict. There's no problems here, right? Yeah, right. I'm being facetious. So two major causes of conflict. Number one, communication. We just talked about it. Lack of information, poor information, or no information, or misinformation. Communication is a major source of conflict. And then emotions, right? People, if you have a particular viewpoint, look, we see it all over our world today, in the climate, in our country, and over politics and all the rest. And you just see people getting all wrapped up in the feels over their opinions. And so emotions come into play. And we as leaders, and really, if we want to be healthy, we have to refuse to let emotions drive our decisions. And so this is something we told our leadership team at Chick-Fil-A, 5 keys to dealing with the workplace conflict. And really the context applies in church and small group. Define what is acceptable behavior. Clearly and publicly make it known what you will and won't tolerate. Like, for example, in the small group world, we tell people up front, when we coach our leaders at our small group events, at our small group meetings, we will not solicit business for one. We will not, for instance, take up tithes and offerings through your group. You know, like, have everyone bring, that's a storehouse thing, right? You bring that Sunday morning, or you do it online, or we're not collecting tithes. There's certain parameters and boundaries you give them. Define acceptable behavior. Hit conflict head on. Be proactive. Have proactive intervention before conflicts arise. As a leader, if you see something coming, be willing to step up and say, how can I help find a peaceful resolution here? Understand the WIIFM factor. What is that? It's the what's in it for me factor. Use conflict as an opportunity to help others achieve their objectives. You know, your goal as a leader is not that, well, okay, Susan loses and Bill wins, or Bill loses and Susan wins. It's like, how do we both win here? You know, in the kingdom, obviously there's a lot of win to be had, and resolution is super, super important. And then the importance factor. If you're dealing with conflict, know that some things may not be worth it. Pick your battles, right? Avoid conflict just for the sake of conflict. You know, some people like to pick a fight just to pick a fight. It's like the Braveheart thing. I didn't get dressed up for nothing. They just come in ready for battle, but pick your battles. And if it's important enough for conflict, it's important enough to resolve. I love that one. If it's important enough to have a conflict, we're going to resolve this. If we can't do it in the moment, maybe we come back around, wisdom and a multitude of counsel, that we work to resolve the conflict. And so if that arises in the church, if that arises in small groups, if that arises in your personal life, don't just let it fester and sit there unresolved. The Bible talks about that what is it when you're about to protect the table of the Lord? If you have something against your brother, go and resolve that with him. Go and don't let that fester. Okay, and then view conflict as an opportunity. I love this one. Where there is disagreement, there's an inherent potential for growth and development. So conflict is actually a good thing. Conflict is actually a positive thing if handled in a healthy way. And so it's a potential for growth and development. Divergent positions addressed properly can stimulate innovation and learning in ways that minds can't even imagine. Smart leaders look for the upside in all differing opinions. So hidden within virtually every conflict is the potential for tremendous teaching and a learning opportunity. And so smart leaders will look for the upside in those differing opinions and helping people find a resolution. And so a couple of points here. Resolution can normally be found with conflicts when there is a sincere desire to do so. And then, of course, as scripture teaches, turning the other cheek, compromise, forgiveness, compassion, empathy, and a host of other things will always allow one to be successful in building rapport when you're dealing with conflict resolution. And of course, for more information on resolving conflict from a biblical perspective, look at Matthew 18, 15 through 17. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he doesn't listen, if he listens to you, you've gained a brother. But if he doesn't listen, take one or two others along with you, so that every charge may be established as evidence in the sight of two or three witnesses. And it goes on, but again, we can't just let conflict go unresolved. If we want healthy groups, healthy organization, we must embrace conflict and learn how to deal with it in a healthy manner. All right, so we've talked about gossip, poor communication, unresolved disagreements. Here's the next one, and I'm just going to blast through this one. Sanctioned incompetence. What is that? That sounds harsh. Sanctioned incompetence. And so let's just break it down. Sanction means give official permission or approval for, right? And the incompetence is the inability to do something successfully. I've been there. Like raise your hand or hit the little button if you've ever been unable to do something successfully. I think we've all had a little bit of that. Lots of raised hands going up. What's up, Joshua? So when a member of the team isn't carrying his or her weight or just flat out isn't cutting it, it's your job as the leader to step in. Otherwise, you are sanctioning incompetence. I don't know if you remember if you've attended or done any group work in college. So I had a little time in Bible college, and then I had a little time in secular college. And I didn't experience this in the Bible college world, and maybe some of you did, but in my business degree, I had group work that I had to do, right? And have you ever been there with group work in high school or college? You got 5 people doing a job, 5 people working an assignment, and 2 of those people are like doing the majority of the work. It kind of makes you mad, right? And so they don't feel like pitching in, or maybe they'll pitch in next time. And so if you don't act when someone isn't carrying their load or won't do their job or flat out refuses to, it demotivates everyone else. And so dealing with incompetence, just 3 simple points here. Lead them well. If it's people in your church or people in your small group, you want to lead them well. If it's training that's required, you want to make sure you're training and equipping well. So leading them well will incorporate embodying what you say is important to you, or the principles that you're espousing, and training them. Obviously, if someone is not doing well, you want to do your best to equip them. This is especially important as a church leader. Landon, your whole job, DLI's whole job, is helping to equip people. And so you guys are a byproduct. When you come, and I will tell you, I got to brag on DLI. We've had countless people here, students at Christ Church, that have gone through DLI. And there is a marked difference because they get the leadership training from DLI. You can absolutely see it all over them. In fact, one of our pastors, our discipleship pastor, Pastor Siobhan, she often tells me, she goes, man, my training at DLI sharpened me. It made me a better leader. It made me fall in love with God's word even more. And it really did boost everything I was trying to do in the kingdom. And so you're getting trained well. I got to give this shout out to DLI without a doubt. And then release them. If someone is obviously not cutting it on purpose, they're not intentional with their own growth. They're not embracing their own growth and taking steps to improve. And they're just, I look at this sometimes with small group leaders. Sometimes you got to either say, hey, the season is over, or you got to let them say they need to be released. For example, I had when I first came on a small groups pastor, I had a leader that was leading they've been leading for the last 3 years. And they came to me and they said, man, I don't feel like as passionate about my group anymore. And I don't know what but these people still want to meet and they need me. And then she was just so distraught about what to do. And I just said this, take a break. Just take a break. It is okay if you're not functioning as leader, either because the season has run out or God's leading you elsewhere. Don't feel this guilt that you have to carry this on out of duty. This is about serving God, should be out of delight, not duty, right? And so sometimes it's okay to release someone, and that doesn't mean fire them in the small groups context. It's like, let them take a break. There you go. I'm going to jump ahead because we got one more. And how are we doing on time? 7:11. Landon, how are we doing, brother?
Yeah, let's just roll through them. We'll take some questions after that.
Okay, let's do it. So I will say this. Let's go to number 5. I want to hit this. I want to be able to have Q&A. So number 5, we've talked about gossip. We've talked about poor communication, all enemies of unity, unresolved conflict, sanctioned incompetence. And the last one is my favorite, lack of shared purpose. And so what is the antithesis of lack of shared purpose? Well, it's a shared purpose. To have a very clear vision. The Bible says without a vision, oh my gosh, I'm losing the thread. Without a vision, the people
perish.
Do it. That's it. Perish. Maybe I'm avoiding that word because it's 2020 and I don't want any perishing to occur. And so lack of shared purpose, without a clear vision, the people perish. And so purpose is incredibly important. And so a lack of shared purpose is sometimes caused by a leader not restating the goals, the vision, the mission statement. And if you're familiar with just casting vision in general, is that vision leaks, right? Yeah. Vision leaks. And so what do? You have to, the vision must be repeated over and over and over again. Wash, rinse, repeat. You cannot just say, I said what my vision is. I said what I believe in. They should know it. No, vision leaks. And so you must find ways to communicate that vision and make it compelling. And y'all, we have a compelling vision as the church. I mean, our vision should be the vision that God has for the world, right? To go and make disciples, to love the Lord your God, the 2 great commandments, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. And the second command is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And our mandate is compelling. And so I love Simon Sinek, my old boss at Chick-Fil-A. He was a big Simon fan. He said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Very, very true. So what is the why? Here's the question. What is your why? What is the why behind your life, your calling, your church, your small group? Like, what is your why? And I was going to share with you briefly. And so at Christ Church, we have what we call the big 3, and it's to connect, restore, and empower, right? That's our big 3, to connect, restore, and empower people with the love of Jesus. And I love the simplicity of that vision because it is very compelling, yet it's very simple and very easy to repeat. And it helps make it, as one author put it, makes it sticky, makes it where people can understand. And so I've taken that in the small group space and it said, okay, we're to be connected relationally, restored and growing spiritually, and empowered to live with purpose. Like, why small groups at Christ Church? Why are they important? Why do we feel like everyone here at Christ Church needs to be a part of one? It's because when you're connected relationally, it leads to restoration and growth spiritually. We've seen it happen again and again. It's the New Testament church. They met in the tabernacle and from house to house. And so, and then what's the end result? The end result is to empower people to live with purpose and to go and make disciples. And then we also have, obviously, when it comes to a shared purpose, we preach our core values, and they are to know God, love people, live authentically, because being fake is exhausting. You've gotten the real Nate today, whether you like it or not, on every level. So I'm trying to live authentically with you. Pursue excellence in everything you do, and then dream big. We're not going to limit God by small thinking or small living. And so if you want shared unity in your group, in your church, whatever the context God calls you to be in, you want to have that shared purpose. And so that is it. The 5 enemies of unity. You want to you want to divorce this idea of gossip. You want to communicate well. You want to resolve disagreements. You want to help people perform, either by training them, leading them well, certainly, and by or releasing them. And then make sure you have a shared purpose. And then when that comes together, what we found at Chick-fil-A, man, is that when people committed to that, we were absolutely stronger together. And this, without a doubt, pertains to what we do as a church and fulfilling the call of God that he's placed on each of us. And so, Landon, thank you. And DLI, thank you for your time and letting me share this snippet of my leadership experience from Chick-fil-A and how some of it applies to what I do here at the church.
Nathan, so good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fantastic. I know that the first question that was asked, and the question that I know was on my mind, is, can you make that presentation shareable? Can we get those slides? I think there are people that love to go through it a little more slowly and absorb it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly can. So I can either send it to you, PDF form, or whatever, and let you disseminate it. Well, I mean, however how you decide, but
yeah,
more than willing to share it, for sure.
Perfect. And the questions will start rolling in just a moment. But while they're getting their questions in, I think each of those areas could, bear just a whole hour in themselves and unpacking them.
Yeah.
But let me ask you maybe a broader question while other questions are coming in. So what was the biggest adjustment from moving from the corporate world to the church world, dealing with employees versus volunteers? So what was the biggest transition for you? Because obviously there's a lot that did translate from Chick-fil-A to Christ Church. But what were some of the differences where you had to make some adjustments?
That's a great question. In fact, in my first year as a small groups pastor, I encountered that very challenge on so many levels. Because obviously, when you're in a corporate world and leadership, you have employees versus volunteers, and you can't just turn your volunteers into voluntolds. They will voluntarily leave. Or it's just not the way to treat people. And so, yeah, it definitely requires more persuasion. I think one thing, and obviously this is where sharing vision clearly really comes into play. But like, when I really think about it, the leadership training I got at Chick-fil-A, it was more about leadership than it was authority. People have positional authority, and I can tell you to do it because I'm the boss. And there's some churches that don't really thrive when I said so because I'm the pastor, versus here's the compelling reason why we follow after the heart of God, right? And so when you lead people out of that sincere desire to have them embrace these principles, these truths of scriptures, because it's better for them, not because this is what they're supposed to do. It's a big deal. So for me, when it was leading people, obviously that there was a transitional period when I first came on as a minister where I readily recognized that reality, which was like, I can't just tell people to go lead a small group. I have to compel them. And not just for the sake of numbers, but for the sake of, like, guys, we need community. Like, look at Jesus modeled community, and he's God. He could have done everything he did on his own, right? He could have parted the waters by himself. He could have, not part of the waters, could have calmed the winds and waves by himself. He could have healed people by himself. What did he do? He surrounded himself with 12 others. He modeled community. He modeled discipleship, and so many other examples. But yeah, you can't just tell people to go do something. You have to show them um, the value of it. And I think for me, I was a small group leader. My wife and I, we lead Financial Peace University here at Christ Church and have for about 4 years. And so we were involved in small groups for years before I was called to be the small groups pastor. We saw the impact of small groups in our own personal life and in the lives of others, to the point that, man, like I was so thrilled to be able to become a small groups pastor, because I felt like, man, yeah, I want people to experience what I experienced, and what I've seen some countless others experience. And so, yeah, there's definitely been some challenges in the transition, but God is continuing to teach me. I'm trying to stay teachable. So
Yes, that's great. One thing I would probably add too is that even though Chick-fil-A has a reputation of maybe paying a little bit more than other fast food joints, the reason why the employees act differently isn't another couple extra bucks an hour. There is a leadership culture there of connecting them to the why. And so there's not always a huge difference between, well, because I think sometimes we can buy the lie if we had more paid help, if I could just have more paid help, we could do this. But really, no matter if you're paying people or not paying them, if you don't connect them to the why, you're going to get lackluster performance from them.
Yep.
So let me, several questions are coming in here. So which enemy of enemy of unity do you see the most of in the church context? Is it, gossip, sanctioned incompetence? So as churches, what are our blind spots? What are our weaknesses?
that's a great question. Just thinking through it, I think sometimes, and this is a unique challenge, especially the larger your church gets. But gossip and negativity is obviously one that I think across the board, that's a people thing. Like, no matter if it's church, if it's work, like people just have a tendency to share their opinions and to talk and sometimes stir the pot and stir things up. And I'm so against that. It can be so detrimental. But I think the top two would be the gossip and negativity as a potential killer in churches. I mean, look, I am so privileged. I'm so thankful that I get to be a part of a church where, for large measure, that does not occur. Like, there's such a healthy culture here at Christ Church and throughout the pastoral leadership, throughout our small groups. But people will be people, and so you'll have moments where you have to deal with that. One that becomes challenging as the church gets larger, depending on the size of your church, is communication. And not only communication from the pastoral level, but also just getting, like, look, let's be honest, like small group leaders to communicate with their group members can be challenging at times. And not complaining, we have phenomenal leaders here at Christ Church, but every once in a while I'll have someone reach out and they go, I didn't get contacted by that small group leader. I'm not really sure what's going on. And I'll lovingly try to talk to the group leader, like, hey man, I got people calling me because they just don't know what's happening. And so communication, that's a huge passion of mine. And I think in the church space, that's one we've got to be really intentional with, to create communication patterns that people know are coming, maybe frequencies that they know are coming. We do a fantastic job of that here. Our media team with the social media, that's probably a number one way we communicate. But even departmentally, emails and things and just information, people don't want to be kept in the dark. They want, and when they're kept in the dark, they don't feel like a part of something. They don't feel like, well, I guess I wasn't important enough to tell, and so that's why I didn't know. That may not be true at all. In most cases, it's not true. That we absolutely value them, but because we didn't take the time to communicate this thing or this event or this follow-up, they don't feel that intentionality, and so they go, well, I guess it's not that important. And so, like,
Yeah.
one thing I try to do with my leaders and one thing I try to do with my own personal groups is I usually send out messages reminding them of the group meeting that's coming up. We coach our leaders to do that. And then I like to give a little after action report. Like, I'll give a little recap. And I'll send it out in an email to all my group members. Here's what we discussed yesterday. Here were the prayer requests that were mentioned. And so, hey, take that into your personal prayer time and let's believe together in faith for that person. And then it gives them something to reflect on. I'm involved in a ton of groups this semester. I probably bit off more than I could chew because I love small groups. And so I don't get that right every week, but I try to keep that. I want them to know they're important to me. And so communication is a huge part.
And I would say I see a connection there, Nathan, between those two, is that whenever people aren't in the know, they often create their own narratives, which leads to negativity and gossiping. So the
Absolutely.
reason why, there's a reason why there's so many conspiracy theories that are existing in 2020, and it's because if we can't make sense of our world, if we feel like if we feel under communicated to, that we're not getting the truth, then the human mind is capable of creating all sorts of meta narratives, where the world makes sense. And so if you take that down a whole notch to the church life, it's like, if my pastor's not communicating the vision, then I see this problem, and then I assume that they don't know what's happening. So here's what's really happening. So these two are very much, I think you will never, like, it's human nature, so you'll never stamp out negativity or gossip completely. However, whenever we under communicate, we are really creating a fertile ground for negativity and gossip. So that's one thought I have there. But let's try to hit some of these in rapid fire. So you mentioned some of these already, but communicating with your small group of leaders, if it's a group setting, one-on-one setting, how do you manage that? Because you said you have 80 groups, right? So how do your group leaders really communicate with you? Is that primarily in a group? Is it one-on-one? Is it both? How regular is it? And all that.
Yeah, that's good. I try to do as much one-on-one communication as I can, but me being only one person, that obviously becomes extremely difficult. And so we've developed a team of people that we call core leaders in the small group space. And these are people that have led small groups in the past, that have some wisdom and have some passion about groups. And we have about 8 to 10 to 12 core leaders spread out through 3 campuses. And every one of those core leaders is assigned anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes 6 or 7 small group leaders. And so out of our 80 small groups that occur, they all have a core leader that is basically reaching out to them several times during the semester. Hey, how can I pray for you? How can I encourage you? How can I support you? What are the needs of your group right now? Is there any way we can help? And those self-sustaining groups out there that are in good shape and their leaders are seasoned and they're in good hands, they often don't need that support. It's a check-in. But there's some, man, especially group leaders, we increase our level of care with brand new group leaders. In fact, their core leader takes more intentional steps to contact them maybe more frequently, or maybe to ask questions about how's group time going and how do you feel like your discussions are going, or have you encountered any issues that are problematic for you? So it's not just me reaching out, it's this team of trusted people, and they're all volunteers, by the way, that are passionate about small groups that I trust, and they know my heart. And let me tell you, when I'm pouring into all our leaders. That's my intention. But I'm really pouring into those core leaders, because those core leaders are pouring out and pouring into all the small group leaders. And so it's the Jethro principle from Exodus, where Moses was trying to do it all, and his father-in-law Jethro comes in town. He says, appoint your leaders over your thousands, over your hundreds, over your tens. And so our leadership structure in small groups is absolutely based on the Jethro principle. Because it takes a team.
All right. So let's get back to gossip, the negativity. This is This is a hypothetical scenario. Like, this would never happen in a church, but just pretend with me. There's a leader on the team who's vocally negative, letting their voice be heard. So the best way, never would happen in a church setting, but just pretend like it's some crazy world. You've got a leader on your team who is vocally, who is negative vocally. How do you hold them accountable for what was said? Are those private conversations, or is it a public conflict? Because I guess there's one way of thinking is if some sort of gossip or disunity happens in a public forum, it needs to be corrected in public so that everyone can see that it's been resolved. So how do you differentiate between when to handle something privately and when something needs to be publicly addressed?
Yeah, that takes some that definitely takes a skillful approach, if you will. And I'm not saying I'm the person that corners the market on it. But to answer that, I'll share an example that happened in Chick-fil-A organization, because our culture was so fiercely dedicated to having a healthy work environment, to having a culture of, say, just encouragement and positivity, and but engaging in conflict resolution and being intentional, but creating resolution between people. When someone would just systematically almost, or just perpetually gripe and tear people down. I remember when I first came into leadership, this is at Chick-fil-A years and years ago, there was someone there that, man, as soon as I arrived on the scene and was made a part of the leadership team, they just seemed to always be bad-mouthing my employer, my boss, or disagreeing, or they didn't like what something this other person said. I don't like this. And I just could tell, here's what I knew. I knew that in the culture that we were trying to protect, that David, my boss, spent years of his life investing in protecting, that kind of attitude would not last long. And it didn't. And not that passiveness will ever lead to a resolution. Sometimes you have to be proactive. But eventually the problem solved itself, and she wound up removing herself from the organization because she couldn't thrive there. And so when your organization, when your church is super passionate about creating this culture where that kind of gossip and negativity is not tolerated, the people that decide to do that, in my opinion, they won't last very long. And so you either deal with that directly. In fact, look, that kind of thing can really be cancerous in an organization, man, and especially a church. And you really do have to have a zero tolerance policy for that kind of thing. And what I mean by that is, you give people a chance, obviously bring it to their attention. Like, hey, look, do you know that your attitude is destructive? Do you know that the way you communicate with others, the way you talk about others, is demoralizing and tearing people down? And if they acknowledge it and look, they repent and they change their ways, great. But if they don't, they're not going to thrive in the environment that we're creating, because we don't tolerate that. We you know what I mean? And so it is a little harder in the church world, obviously, because in the professional world, I could give you a series of disciplinary actions, and then, hey, I didn't fire you, you fired you. But also in the church, there's some times where it's like, okay, you've continued to make destructive choices that tear other people down. They do not build them up. Our mandate is to encourage and empower people. And you're doing the opposite of that. And so I can't let you be in leadership anymore. I can't let you lead a small group anymore. I'm sorry. I want to, but I can't. And so and so sometimes, and yeah, depending on, obviously you want to be as discreet as possible, but you do want people to know that is how you're going to handle it. For example, we've had to remove some leaders before. In my year and a half since being here, I haven't personally removed them, but some people remove themselves if they just have a set of circumstances that they were unable to continue, or if they made some compromising decisions that obviously compromised their witness or would do damage to help to have them remain in leadership. And so you have to very lovingly walk people through that, but at the same time, you have to create boundaries and say, to protect the people that are here, the people that are investing their hearts and souls and who we're leading. Sometimes you have to deal with conflict, and sometimes you have to remove problem areas, or in lovingly. Obviously, there's been people that I've seen go through that, and after they're removed, so to speak, or asked to not serve anymore. It's not like you just push them out of the way and okay, you're done, see ya, because that's where people get hurt and upset. But you just position yourself as, hey, look, this happened, but I'm here to help you through restoration, or how can I serve you, or how can I still want you to be whole. I still want you to be healthy. Like, I'm sorry you can't lead in this season right now, but I still want, how can I best serve you? And people know when that's genuine, and that's the kind of culture you need to try to create, in my opinion.
Yeah. And
did I answer that question okay?
That's great. And I'd say that we have to remember that our primary job is to pastor people, not punish them. So if you're dealing with a negative person, usually there's something broken in them that needs to be healed, rather than just a behavior that needs to be corrected. Absolutely. So something broken that needs to be healed, not a behavior that needs to be corrected. And because I've had to learn that the difficult way, because I found people that are usually negative in church are also negative about their job, they're negative about their family, they're negative about their school. Nothing's good enough at and so there's something in them that really needs to be addressed. And so trying to realize, like, my job is, yes, I'm protecting the culture of the church, but I'm also protecting them. Like, I want to see God's best for their life. And if you have that toxic viewpoint, everything is going to be bad in your life. So to help them get there, and then to find, like, there are times I've recently went through a scenario where there's some negativity, and it's like, look, can you tone that down? No, I can't. Okay, I love you. I want to be your pastor, and I want to love you through this. But if you can't tone this down, then this is what needs to happen at this moment. And it's not personal. Like, you and I, we can go get lunch tomorrow. Like, it's not a personal thing. It's just that if we're not able to speak the same language, then we just can't. Then you can't be leading at this time. But it's not personal. It's not like I'm okay with you not being okay, and I'm not going to treat you differently with that. But it's just as a leader, you can't represent us if you can't get on the same page. So let's do two more. Just give us maybe just a line or two here, because these are good questions. And one is such a good one, because I would think, go back to our crazy political season we're in right now, both candidates would say we need unity in our nation, and that unity is accomplished by getting behind what I want to do. And so how do we disseminate being self-centered versus being God-centered? In other words, sometimes unity can be a code for, like, if you guys would just do what I want, if y'all would just line up and quit doing, and all just get behind me, then we could all be united. How do we know that the unity we're seeking is really a unity around a God-given purpose rather than just like this sort of selfish ambition?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that obviously that comes down to the heart, right? It comes down to what are we trying to accomplish? Is the ministry that I'm building, is it all about me? Is it all about the numbers? It's, that's the weird thing about being in leadership in a corporate sense versus leadership in the church. You do want to grow your ministry. Like, I want to be a successful small groups pastor. But if my motivation is in coaching you and equipping you is just so I can, so we can have the largest, most kick butt small groups ministry in the country, it's going to be readily apparent. And so what's my motivation? And so my motivation, I always tell people, I don't care about the number of groups. I want healthy groups. I said that last year. There's one thing that happened within me, because, man, I'm all about performance and metrics. And at Chick-fil-A, you have metrics that get reported on your phone by the second. Instantaneous feedback. You don't get that in the church world. Sometimes you don't see the fruit of that, fruit of the work you do, until months later, years later, perhaps. There is some feedback, but one thing, and just framing that up, is this idea of, what is true success? So, like, when I first came in, I think our fall of last year, we had, the fall before I took over as small groups pastor, we had 115 small groups. And then the next fall, where I was leading, we dropped down to 97 groups. And I remember going through this internal struggle. Oh gosh, what does that mean? Our small group numbers are dropping. You go through some of that because you want to perform, you want to be a high performer, you want to execute well, all those things. But then God he showed me, he goes, don't worry about the number. You want healthy leaders. And that's where we gave some group leaders permission to bow out that had been leading for 3 years straight. I mean, straight killing it, doing a great job. But I could tell some of them were burning out. It's like, let me let you take a break for a season and recharge and get a new vision from God, and then come back and lead maybe in the spring. And so we gave people permission to do that, recharge their batteries. And you know what? They came back stronger, more revitalized, and better than ever, because we gave them permission to say no for a season. And that was huge. And so for me, it's like, you said a short answer. I'm giving you a long one. I'm so sorry. But that was the thing for me, is like, it's not about the metrics. It's not about the numbers. It's about the health. And we want healthy leaders. We want healthy followers of God. And we want people pursuing their calling from a place of health and joy and delight, and not duty.
Love it. And it's
Yeah.
related to another question that came in about, if your group was once, if you are a group leader and it was once large, energetic, then after COVID, it's just had a hard time coming back in either numbers and energy. How can, the question is, how can we rekindle the fire? But I think you're really starting to answer that, is that you have to like move past how many people are there and how it feels, and really focus on, what it is right now, and to forgive yourself. I know the person asked to enter that question, the church is my church, Grace Church, and he's from our Humble campus, which was the Houston area has been hit very hard by COVID. And so you have to just forgive yourself. Like those things are out of your control. That it's not, you don't take it personal. This is a thing that's out of your control. And so you focus on what is there, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Landon. And I'll speak to that. And it's funny that you said the question came from Grace Church, because it really is about grace. I wrote something, my wife and I, we come up with a vision each year for our family for that year. And we have some goals, and we kind of write it on the fridge. It's a little vision board. It's really great. And one of the things we said was give ourselves grace, give each other grace, and give other people grace. And in 2020, man, we all need to be reminded of a dose of grace. And let me tell you, if you're out there and you're worried about the size of your church, the size of your small group, we're all in the same boat together. Let me tell you what we encountered before we entered this small group season. I sat with Jeffrey Kent. He's our administrative pastor. He used to be the small groups pastor, and he helped onboard me. And we looked at fall 2020 with COVID and everything, and we go, man, we might be lucky to get 30 groups, 40 groups. But we said, whatever we get, we're going to give them the same attention. We're going to give them the same amount of care. We're going to give them the same training, and let God sort out the results. It's a mistake to think that, well, maybe if I was a better this or a better that, or maybe it's if I was more equipped or better equipped. The enemy will attack you in that way, and he'll make you think about numbers and results, and make you think for a second that it's tied to something you do. We're only responsible for being faithful and being consistent. God is responsible for results ultimately. And I love that. Pastor Tom said it to me when he hired me on. I asked him for a 7 to 10 day window to pray about this decision to become a pastor, man. Because I told you 15 years ago, I vowed to never be a pastor again. And here I am. And he goes, that's great. Take whatever time you need. We kind of need to know in about 10 days is our max time frame. And so I entered a serious process of praying and thinking about it. But what he said to me, I have never forgotten. And he said, look, just know we love you. Thank you for being the leader that you are here at Christ Church in whatever context. And he said, don't worry about your answer, how it might affect us. He said, God will build his church. Period. Just focus on your faithfulness in the joy of the process of serving. It's a get to thing, right? Let God worry about the results. We're all results driven. And if you come from the corporate world into the ministry world, that doesn't just switch off. But you have to temper that with the reality of knowing that when God is going to build his church, he's using you, and he will use, and yes, do it skillfully and in faithfulness and all those things, but know that the results are up to God. And so if you got 2 people in your group or 15 in your group or whatever the number is, just be faithful and consistent.
Yeah. And I think about rekindling the fire, you just have to change the definition of what it looks like in the season. So this is a great time to go deep whenever you can't grow big, so like your group may be half the size, but you can go much deeper with those people. And post COVID, the people you have are people who want to be there. They have every excuse not to be, like, right? I mean, we're all at 50% or under in attendance, and not all those people are scared of COVID. They're just people that are like, yeah, I'm not coming back right now. Like I like to watch church in my pajamas. So the people that are actually there are people that want to be there, people that are perhaps taking a health risk to be there, people that are they're making sacrifices they don't have to. So you realize, well, like I have a hungry crowd. Like I have people who are all in. They want to be here, which means that you really can go deeper than you could have previously. And so to reframe how you look at that. Last question, creative way to keep sharing the vision so that it remains sticky but not boring. So how do we keep communicating vision in a way that's not like every time you stand up, you're like, well, here, my name's Nathan, I'm from Christ Church, and at Christ Church we do 3 things. Like how do you just keep creating that vision?
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard it years ago, but it was when it comes to vision, say it often, say it differently, and then say it. I can't remember what the rest of them were, but yeah, I mean, being creative with it is a part of it. But I think the more it just comes from a genuine place, I think that like my strategic bet as a leader is one of like I want people to see my heart. And so sometimes I can be super creative, but you ever know you hit that wall where you go, I've said it this way, I've said it that way. I guess we'll go back to the way we said it a year ago and just go back because I can't think of new ways to say it. And so, but again, I think if it comes from a place of that, you lead in sincerity and from the heart and certainly be as creative, but it all comes down to your level of passion, right? If I'm not passionate about that vision, if I don't really believe and buy that vision and I can't say it from the heart, then maybe I got to find a new way to say it. Or as a church, maybe it's time to refresh the vision or recalibrate the vision. Or one thing we did in Chick-Fil-A in particular, this is right before I left. I was a part of it. My boss, he came up with circles of influence. There was an influence circle. There was an operations circle. The influence circle was only made up of 3 or 4 people. And we were there to basically design what would be our new vision, new core set of core values, like what is important to us now and to reevaluate. Like that vision has worked for a long time, but I feel like we need to retool it and really look at that. And so we crafted a new set of core values, and some of them were very similar to the other ones, but some of them had shifted and they were a little new. And a lot of it had to do, like, I'll give you an example. We used to say the customer is at the center of everything that we do. As Chick-fil-A, that was a big mantra for our Chick-fil-A for a couple of years. The customer is the center of everything we do. And then it switched to our team is the center of everything we do. And it was about people development. And so figure out the season that you're in and where the priority, maybe God has led you to shift your priority a little bit based on what's gone on in the world or the particular needs of your church. But be willing to say, okay, for this new season, like Pastor Tom at the beginning, Vision Sunday 2020, we have our big 3. We obviously have our core values as a church, but he said, okay, the vision for 2020, and this is before COVID, right? This is going to be a house of prayer. We're going to return to a commitment and a fierce dedication to being a house of prayer. And little did we know that prayer focus would be so vital. It got us through 3 months of lockdown in a big bay. We had Zoom prayer meetings, man. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, man. The Brady Bunch Zoom view with 30, 40, 50 people on there, and we're all praying together. And but it was powerful. And so just reframing the vision. Find new ways to say it, but then sometimes shift the focus.
Right. Perfect. And don't forget to live the vision as well. And I think that's probably one of the big things that sometimes we say it verbally, but then we also say it by the way that we live. And so whatever the vision of your group or the house is, like if you're valuing dreaming big, then you've got to dream big and let those around you see you do it as well. Nathan, this has been so good tonight. Thank you for your time, and I know you've helped us all. Those notes will be beneficial. I plan on just teaching those as they are. You get credit the first time, but after that,
man, it's all good, brother. Look, I'm super honored, and thank you for having me on. And to all the students at DLI, let me just encourage you and tell you, regardless of where God is calling you to be, in what context He's calling you to be, or what your next step may be, you're in good hands. I mean, man, DLI, you guys are killing it. I'm super honored just to be able to speak and talk about some of these things. Thank you.
All right, Pastor Nathan, thank you so much. Students, thank you guys for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions or anything that we can do to help you. We will get you those notes as soon as possible. And until next time, you guys have a good night, and pray that God blesses you in all that you do. Talk to you soon.